Okay,
All right, there we
cool.
go.
So I guess this is session 2 of Edcamp Home, right?
Hmm.
Um, and this is for standards-based grading, which is kind of cool. That's something I've really wanted to talk about, so I really selfishly got to get myself involved in this one. So I'll just talk about me for a second. I'm Chris, um, high school English teacher in Taipei, Taiwan. It's 2:25 in the morning here, and I'm really sleepy. And so at some point, the rabbit's going to start jumping across the screen, and you're just going to have to forgive me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I'll jump in next. I'm Ann Schaefer-Salinas. I'm an associate principal at a private school in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because this is something that I really want to start driving our teachers towards. I think it's very, very important for us to be working on this model. So it's not 2:20 in the morning here, though, Chris. Sorry.
That's all right. You said a small school in the Bay Area. I'm in Taiwan now, but there's a really pretty good chance that I'm going to be teaching in a small school in the Bay Area next year. So
Ah,
yeah, kind of cool.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll go next. I'm Donnie Piercy. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Simmons Elementary School just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. I love the idea and sound of standards-based grading, but I know absolutely nothing about it. So I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say, because I'd love to try it out, even the second half of the year in as many ways as I can.
Great.
All right, I'll jump in. I'm Garnet Hillman. I'm a high school Spanish teacher from Crestville, Illinois, which is southwest of Chicago. I've been fully standards-based for 2 years now, and love it, and love talking about grading and standards-based learning and all of that. And when you guys to join us on Twitter for our chat Wednesday night, SBG chat, where we talk about everything standards-based.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm trying to get my lower third on. It's not working. But I'm Chuck Maddox. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. I teach in an Episcopal school. I teach 8th grade U.S. history, 7th grade and 6th grade Spanish. I don't do standards-based grading, but I've learned about it on Twitter a lot with some of the chats, so I'm interested to learn some more and maybe implement it in my classroom.
Great.
Is that all of us? Did Justin talk? Did you get a chance?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having some camera problems right now. But I'm a social studies teacher from western Wisconsin, and I don't have any standards-based grading, but kind of interested in the topic from the little bit I know. So here to listen a little bit.
Well, do you guys who know a lot more about it want to? I don't know if you're selling us on it. I think if we're in, we're at least receptive. So.
Do you guys have? I have been implementing it for a while. Do you have questions? Or are there things that you want to know how it works?
Yeah, I mean, just how? So where did you say you're at?
I'm in Illinois.
Okay, so are you guys using Common Core?
Yeah, I teach Spanish, so I'm not as effective. I do write my own standards.
Okay.
I know some of the people on SBG chat use Common Core standards, as their, for their standards-based assessment. But I do write my own standards, and I kind of look at our national, and I look at all those different things. We don't have Common Core, but we still have plenty of standards to take a look at to derive our own.
So does each student kind of have their own spreadsheet or something that has like a? Oh, sorry. Does each student have like their own spreadsheet
That was
has a?
My bad. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Has a spreadsheet or something that has the standard with their grade in it? Is it like a rubric? I love the idea, like I said, but I really don't know in terms of a management idea how it would work.
Oh yeah. I have to make my computerized gradebook work for me because I function in a traditional system. So I still have to give a letter grade at the end of the semester, even though I prefer not to. So what I do on my computerized gradebook system is I, instead of putting traditional assignments in, The assignments are the standards. I put the
Okay.
scores in for the standards that way. I do a 4-3-1 scale. I use
Okay.
no percentages or anything like that. So I have to turn off my computer grade book that calculates grades because I don't want it to calculate a percentage for me.
Okay.
Tricky.
Yeah. Huh.
So you turn those
So-
off, but do you leave that off for the end of the semester then?
At the end of the semester, I go through and assign the students the letter grade. I also have a conversion from the 4-3-2-1 to a letter grade so that they can see. I don't use any percentages.
What's do you use like a scale? Because it sounds like most of SPG people use like I've seen like the 0 to 3 or 1 to 4, or like the 1 through 10 scale.
I use a 1 to 4 scale.
Wonderful.
I don't use a 0. I use lack of evidence instead of a 0, and then relentlessly pursue evidence if I don't have evidence for a particular standard. So yeah, so I don't use a 0.
Okay. So for those of you that are currently using standards-based, how much time do students have for demonstrating their mastery or of the standard within a unit? Like what is your pacing? What does that look like? Does that make sense?
Changed all that much from when I did a traditional grading system. A unit might take us, 3 weeks to a month. But I think what changed when I changed my grading was that if a student later on, even if we're in a different unit, can make mastery of a standard, I'll go back and change their score for that.
Got it. Okay.
So, like, in terms of documenting, like, do you have, like, I mean, I try to do a lot of stuff digitally. So, like, if a student does something that they show mastery in a standard, like either they've written a paragraph or something, would you, like, take a picture of it, or would you, like, add it to a file folder somewhere, or how would you go about that?
I do keep, I teach language, so they do write. I do keep writing samples from them. I'm trying to switch to more digitally rather than more paper.
Yeah.
When they speak, I keep audio files of that. So I do keep track. I keep records, of their different assessments and when they take them, and if they, reassess on any standards, I would keep it as well.
Okay.
How many standards do you have?
12 per semester. I had
guess.
more last year, and I would not recommend having more. It's difficult.
Great.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think about, like, I've got, 155 students that come to me throughout the day. So I'm just trying to think of, and, I've got, I'm a social studies teacher, so while I'm not on Common Core, I'm still expected to incorporate it into, like, more like the writing component of social studies. I'm just trying to think of, like, from a management perspective, like, how do I go about, or what's the best way would be a better question, of going about managing, 150 standard-based assessments for grades.
Another video?
Well, yeah, that's why I
Another video?
computerized grade books, because it's a communication tool as well,
Okay.
to show them then their scores on the summative assessment.
Another video?
I can also connect you. One of my my like I said, is not completely standards based. There's only a few of us, but one of my colleagues is a social studies teacher who is standards based. So I'll connect with you and get you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Was there any pushback when you decided to go standards based?
That was going to be my question.
Change is hard. It's I didn't have a ton of pushback. I've been lucky, but there always is. There's always kids that I teach 9th graders, so they've spent the first years of their education in the traditional system. They've learned how to point seek. They've learned how to play the game of school. Some of them very well, and this is kind of turning the tables on them. So it's been a lot of conversations with parents and students about learning and about what's truly important for the kids at, since I teach 9th grade, but it's high school, as, we're getting them ready for college, that they really need to learn you know, and they need to apply and they need to synthesize and they need to do all of these things and not just gather points.
Do they look at you differently because in your class they have standards-based, but in other classes they don't? Like, is there not like a hierarchy, but I mean, obviously you're challenging them in different ways than they are in other classes. How does that work if your whole school isn't standards-based?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's an interesting conversation because I have kids who, you know, will say, "Can't you just tell my other teachers how to do this?" I talk learning with them all the time, and we talk about what's truly important, and they know I don't like to talk about grades, that I would rather talk about learning and mastery and how to get there, how to become proficient, and how to use their language. So it, you know, I always look more forward to second semester, which takes that first semester to get them ingrained in what to do. And I have people say, well, why do you put all the work in if you're just going to go back into a traditional setting right after you? Because they will, for the most part. But I always just have to do what's right for my kids right now. It's all I can do. And I truly feel that standards-based grading and learning is right. And so I will do right this time for the year.
Can I ask a grade book question? You kind of talked about this earlier, but you said like in your, because I'm visual, and so I have to think of this in terms of what a grade book looks like. Your horizontal rows, I assume is like the, you know, each of the students, and then each of the columns is like, you know, this is homework 1, homework 2, homework 3, but now you're using standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, correct? So then I think part of, from what I understand, part of SBG is like the student can redo work, and they can continue to find ways to pull that, not the grade. I gotta stop thinking in terms of that. To pull that score up, or to pull that rating up. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we just talk about demonstrating mastery. Yes,
Okay.
they can always find additional ways to demonstrate that.
So then how do you track that? And maybe that's a dumb gradebook question that's not important for now, but like let's say that the kid gets, I don't know, they display, you know, 3 out of 10 mastery. Oh, you used 4. Okay, they display 2 out of 4 mastery, and then later on they show like better. Do you like make another column and add like 1 point, or like do you just change the score? Like, I guess what I'm asking is like, is there any sort of tracking to let them know? Because that's going to be one of my big issues. Well, your kid sucked before, but now they're a champ, as opposed to like, well, now they have a 4 because they have a 4, you know?
Yeah. In my computerized gradebook, I just go in and change the score because there's not really a way for me to do that. But I keep their scores in Excel. So I don't have a standards-based computerized gradebook program because I'm in a traditional setting. I don't have the opportunity to do that. But I keep their growth in an Excel spreadsheet so that I can go back and then look at where they started and where they end up.
Cool.
Garnet, you mentioned that you've got a colleague who's a social sciences teacher, and they're doing standards-based grading. Do you find, I mean, because you're a language teacher, I'm wondering if there has been less pushback because parents might not see that as, you know, part of the more important, if you will, courses that their students need for college preparation. So I'm wondering how the transition happened for the social science teacher, even though we as high school teachers know that every subject is critical to their success, right? But parents don't see it the same way. And so I'm wondering if maybe they just, oh, it's just the Spanish class, and so they don't give you as much pushback as they might a social science teacher or a math teacher or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and we've had an English teacher that did it as well, which would definitely be, you know, considered core. You know, and there is pushback from some parents because they are worried about grades because school, these grades matter, GPA matters, and all of that getting into college. So, you know, we have had some pushback from parents, and we have the conversations with them and let them know that, you know, this actually should make it even more feasible for your student to get the grade that they want to and that they, you know, want to have on their transcript when they go ahead and apply to college, because if they perform poorly on standard, there's always that opportunity to reassess. There's always that opportunity to go back, do some relearning, figure out what the problems were, and then demonstrate your mastery of it. So we have had pushback though, and you know, social studies and myself, but once they kind of, you know, have had a chance to come around to it, and I've had a chance to explain, and our other teachers have had a chance to explain, usually they're pretty happy with it.
Garnet, I have a question for you. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit late to the conversation here, but my biggest thing is how you actually manage this, as students develop and get into mastery, how do you manage juggling 20 different things at the same time? Because I know that, yeah, students should have all that time to prove their mastery, but from a management perspective, have you got any tips? What do you find that works for you?
Well, what works for me is, especially the management, I think, becomes more of an issue once you're outside of a unit of study and they want to go back and show you that mastery. So we get creative with our time, and we utilize homeroom time for them to come in. My kids have a 20-minute homeroom period every day. Twice a month, I have before school tutoring. I do that with them and say, hey, come on in, let's reassess, let's do some different creative things. So I do have to meet with my students outside of class time at times to get those reassessments done. But if they're willing to make the commitment, so much to make sure they get that opportunity.
Okay. Do you have any, as a school, do you have any policies regarding retakes? Like, if a student only gets, let's say, a 2, so a basic, do you allow them, say that they have to redo things or show further mastery? Or we've had a lot of issues, not so much in my school, but in another school in the region where students, if they don't get, I think, either a 2 or around the 70%, they're still kind of on percentages in areas, they are saying the kids have to redo the assignment or they have to have remediation towards it. How do you work through that? Or do you do that?
I have students that if they have less than a 3 is proficient in my room, that they need to redo and retake. Are there a few that really push back with me on that? Yes. By the end of the semester, are there some 2.5s that I have not been able to get to come in and redo? Yes. But I work as hard as I can to get all my kids who have standards that are below that 3 to come in and reassess. But it happens. And we don't have any, we're not standards-based throughout my school. There aren't any school-wide policies or anything.
Okay.
Does
more
anybody
like,
Oops.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead, Donna.
it sounds like the students have the potential to take a lot more ownership for their grades as well. It's not like it's instead of you giving them the grade, it sounds more like they, it's what we want to happen, where they'll take ownership of it, and they are the ones who, they earn whatever, I know that ideally we don't want A, B, C, D, or F on their report cards. We'd love to have a report card where the parents could have something sent home and they could see. Well, I can see that my child does really well with multiplication, but is really struggling with division. They do a great job of, they really get informative text, but they're struggling with analyzing poetry or something like that, right? So yeah. I think my question is should we send home something in addition? Do you send home something in addition to the regular report card that you could staple to it that says, okay, well it says a B, and here's why they got a B, because they've mastered this, but they're working on this. Does that make sense?
Yes,
okay.
I've been working on them over break because we're done with our first semester.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I'm done. I'm ready. I'll be ready to send them this week. I send home a standards-based report to all my parents explaining, and then their letter grade is on there, but that goes on the school report card as well, of course. But in addition, then, are there results in my 4 strands, since I'm a language teacher, of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. I don't break them down by each standard. I could, but that information is in that computerized gradebook, so I don't feel like I need to do that as well. There's also information on their process, or what we might call classroom behaviors, in the standards-based report, as well as I give some narrative feedback for each one of my 147 kids, I believe I have next year. So it takes a while.
Yeah, I've been thinking this whole time. I'm trying to think of a way you could automate this. I was thinking maybe there could be a Google script or something that you could use where you fill it out, like AutoCRAD or something, and then it emails them all out. Okay, here's how your child did, just to make it a little bit easier.
Well, we do use Excel, and then we mail merge it into a template that we've made, but the narrative feedback has to be done by me. But we do use some tools, to make it a little easier.
Yeah, it sounds like, it's just going to take people just kind of playing around with it till somebody figure out a way where we can make this as simple as kind of automated as possible, just to, not to take away the work element of it, but just to make it a little bit easier for the, the management side of things, like Joe was talking about.
Well, there are standards.
Got my brain spinning now. I'm like, oh, this sounds good.
Yeah.
Books.
Gotta nerd it up, Joe.
Oh yeah.
This has been really exciting to kind of learn about, especially over here in Asia. Grades are just, man, it's like a whole nother beast. If you think that you have issues with grades in the States, like just the focus on the GPA, the focus on just do whatever and get the A without necessarily having to prove anything is just unreal. And it's been like one of the most interesting things about the standards-based journey, because I mean, a lot of times, you know how this is. You get really high-achieving kids who can just, poo out an A, and you have kids who really, really, really struggle to get that C, and you have to give them a C because that's what they are, and they've had great improvement. And how do you like rectify that? So, do you guys see the Q&A questions? Like, can you see those?
You know what? I didn't even install that. That's
okay. Because I don't know. Like, there's someone named Tanya Spillane. I'm probably pronouncing
there
that
they
wrong.
are. Oops.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of good questions on here. Somebody in Germany who's watching, I guess.
Stop.
But they were asking if this is like for 9th through 12, or is this in 9th grade, like specifically? And someone else was asking, like Tanya as well, is asking if this applies to graduation. How does this apply to graduation and college scholarships? Any of y'all have questions? Anything you can say with that? Because I think she's watching.
I hear you.
Well, right now we have a few of us at the 9th grade, but there are some in the 10th, 11th, 12th grade that are doing standards-based as well, but it's just a small population. We have a staff at my school of around 200. There's only a few of us doing standards-based reading. Graduation and college scholarships, we still give letter grades, so they still get a GPA, so I don't think anything far from my experience has changed with that, but if you had a school that was completely standards-based, that might make a difference.
I feel like that's kind of what's holding a lot of schools back, is because they know, well, colleges, they're not going to look at how did you do on, what was your mastery level of Common Core strand, LI, or, whatever. They're going to look at, well, what was your grade point average? But I think, we've just got to work to try to shift the students' thinking and also higher ed's thinking, right?
Yeah, but I also think that college and university know A from one school is not an A from another school is not an A.
Yeah, that's true.
And they fix some of that.
Right.
I know we're finally moving away from class rank and things like that to, and I think we've been told in the next 2 years we're all going standards based, and I've switched from traditional scale to 0 through 4 scale, and I love it. I can't wait till we get fully over to standards based grading.
And it's nice your kids know the difference between 1 and a 3.
Yeah.
An 83 and an 83 for you. In mastery or in proficiency, what's the difference? They can hear it. What's the difference between the 3? They can tell you.
Yeah. I think going back to what said about I lost my train of thought now. What was it? Darn it! I'll think again in a minute.
So as someone who's not doing this right now, who wants to, probably not in this semester, I feel weird. I feel terrible switching. Like, this seems like such a big change that I feel like it would be cheating to switch midstream. So this is probably an August thing, which is not a problem for me because that gives me time to kind of brainstorm through it. But maybe for some of you guys that have done this, like what is that? those are kind of the things that you have to process through. You have to think, like, basically, like, think the whole thing out ahead of time. Like, how much of that are you inventing on the fly? How much are you adjusting on the fly? You know, I guess I'm just kind of like thinking of like the timeline, like in my head, like how, you know, when should I be thinking about what and that sort of thing.
I spent a year, I would say, researching before I implemented anything, and then my colleague and I worked a summer to develop our scales and develop, you know, how we want to do things like that. I think one of the starting places would be to just make sure that you've removed behaviors from your grading. Those can be reported separately and all of that, and that's an easy thing to do, you know, to start off, you know, and just making sure of that during second semester before you jump completely in, because then there's things to consider about, first of all, just writing your standards. You know, what are your standards going to be? What do you really want your kids to be able to do? And then you're going to, you know, need to develop, you know, okay, well, what scale do I want to use? Because as you said, there's a lot of scales out there that will be acceptable for you to use in your school. Are you still going to have to use percentages, letter grades, what's been mandated to you? Then you're going to do, you know, kind of from that. Once you have standards established, how are you going to unpack them for your learners, for your parents, so that they're manageable, because standards can be really big. And then beyond that, then you can design some learning experiences for your kids surrounding them and your assessments and all of those things. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that you write different lessons? Do you find that you teach different, or is this something that you kind of feel like it's more like of a grade book type of adjustment, or is this something like on your daily basis where, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's changed a lot of things. I had kind of been on a journey of change, and grading was one of the last things I changed. I had been on a differentiation journey for a long time, you know, and trying to make sure I knew my kids and knew what they needed. And then when I finally got to the point where I felt like I was doing that, you know, could still improve, but was doing that in my classroom, then the grading didn't fit anymore. You know, the traditional system, and I'm like, well, this doesn't fit with what I'm doing. What else can I do? And so that's when I really started learning about standards-based. But it does affect, I'm sorry, I might have put my dog in the background. It really does affect what I do in the classroom. I've been flipping a lot more for personalized learning. So it's been a long journey, but a good one.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, I think I remember what I was going to say to what you said about, you know, the other thing I think we need to look at is, for some students, depending on their subject area, a 2 is what they're going to get. And I worry that we're pushing, I think we do need to direct people towards mastery proficiency at least, at a minimum, but we also need to recognize that for some people in some areas, that isn't their strength. And maybe it is okay, and they need to know that it's okay to be basic in some areas, because I'm sure in others they will be proficient and they will be advanced. Trying to get students to recognize that as well. You know, not everybody's going to be amazing at everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a cool point to bring up.
Well, and I guess you really need to look at when you set your levels. You know, if you really want everyone to work towards a 3, okay, well then what is a 3? What is proficient? You know, if the 2 is unacceptable, you know, and you want them to redo and reassess and keep working, you know, with those kids, especially the ones that struggle a little bit more, then what is that 3? What are we trying to get the kids to? You know, and time play into it and all of that, because I know we're always pressed for time.
Right. I think one of the things that really attracts me to the idea of standards-based grading is that aside from allowing students to learn in a way that I consider a little bit more normal, a little bit more natural, because none of us are masters at anything initially. We do have to keep working at it. It also, I believe, holds teachers more accountable, because it really will force your teachers, your departments to sit down and say, okay, what are the most important pieces of these standards that we need to make sure our kids know? What do they need to know for the next level? What do they need to know beyond high school? And so it really allows for a deep dive on your curriculum, and is going to, by default, I think, really improve excuse me, the overall level of education that your site is providing to your students.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm in La La Land with that, but that's my selling line to
That's
to
a
my
good line.
teachers.
It did that for me. I really had to take a look. You know, I had to reevaluate my assessments and do a lot of work with those. And if you know, and when I unpacked the standards, I unpack using know, understand, and do statements for my kids. They have smaller chunks of things. Some people unpack with like I can statements. It just depends on what you like. But if something on an assessment, of course, is not related to any of that, it has to go. If one of your lessons is not related to that, it has to go, and you have to be willing to really analyze what you do and be willing to let go of something.
Mm-hmm. And that's been kind of the fun part about, like you said something about what it's been that this has been like the year or whatever of you kind of doing the exploration thing, and I feel like I'm going down that road this year. Like I've changed a lot more stuff in previous years, like curriculum-wise, because I get to dictate a lot of my own curriculum because it's an independent school, and we have amazing administration that kind of just trusts us. So it's like this has been kind of the year of like the self-reflection and saying, okay, what really matters, and learning about this is kind of like forced me to say, well, why are we really, what does the grade mean? What does this mean? When the kid asks for extra credit, which they do on a minutely basis in Taiwan, like they breathe and they're like, extra credit now, thank you. Like what does that mean? And if you give them an extra point, what does that mean? And even like I'm embarrassed to admit, but like even doing like the you don't go to the bathroom all semester and we give you some extra credit because you're in class, like how what is that doing,
Right.
And like it's been cool to kind of go through and process that whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those behaviors need to go out of the grade, and it's not that we don't want to develop good citizens, we certainly do,
Mm-hmm.
but it just shouldn't be part of the grade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I have a similar thing. I teach PE, and for years I've battled against people grading based on changing clothes. That tells me nothing. It doesn't tell me what someone knows if they can get dressed or not.
Yeah.
And you know what? Once we did remove that, life became a lot easier. There was no more battles. And the same with extra credit. Once we'd thrown that out the window, so every single, if you're on the journey, it's like one step at a time. You keep moving, and you do start to breathe a lot easier. And you think this is much truer. What you're doing and how you're trying to teach. It's not easy, but it's definitely better.
Well, and the time factor is always a big one, but one of the areas you save time in is instead of trying to figure out exactly how much those behaviors are worth and growth is worth and this is worth, and that all goes out the window. You're not worried about creating all of those different weights or whatever you want to call them. You just have your standards. That's what we're working for.
Right.
Cool, guys. This has been really helpful.
This is, yeah.
I know I've been talking in 10 minutes, but I've been taking notes.
Well, luckily this is also like, I mean, you'll be able to go back to the go back later and rewatch this and reminisce immediately.
Watch me stare at the screen for 10 minutes. Yeah.
But you just want to absorb everything, don't you? It's like you don't want to miss a thing.
These Edcamp things are so much fun. Like the Edcamp online. This is the worst part of being in Taiwan because you guys are so lucky. There's an Edcamp every 15 minutes in the United States. Like there is an Edcamp all the time, and like this is I think the second that I heard about that's been online. I think it's like the third overall, and it's like each time it's like 2 in the morning, and I just like learn, and then I don't get to go to bed because I'm just like all night I'm just staring at the ceiling, going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
That's commitment for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's what we'll call it. Insanity, commitment. It's a fine line. Hey, Hannah, you're our resident administrator in here, right? Or are you?
Yes.
Ms. Hillman? Okay. So then, can I ask you from an administrator perspective? Like, do you
Sure.
like, what's that been like? Do you have to deal with like the parents who are those, or are you school-wide, or is this like individual classrooms that you guys?
Well, okay, so this is my first year as an administrator, and I'm my official title, Associate Principal for Curriculum and Instruction. So this is my watching year and planning year for next year. But I anticipate that there will be a huge amount of pushback from our parent community in addition to the teachers. So I envision it's going to have to be something of a slow rollout. Probably it'll take a couple of years, primarily because we are a small college prep high school that the parents expect all of their kids will be getting into the Ivy League schools. And we know that that's not realistic for all students, but that's the attitude that our families come with.
That's exactly what our situation is for college prep too.
Right. So. Exactly. So I anticipate it's going to be a really interesting process to move in this direction. But the more I read about it, the more I feel very committed to the fact that this is the way we teach kids how to be lifelong learners. We're able to instill in them the idea of grit and perseverance, which will do them very well when you get into the real world. I don't want to hire a teacher that has memorized how to fill out the SAT bubble Scantron sheet. I want to hire teachers that are creative and can think outside the box and understand how to take something very basic and make it exciting to kids. And that's what every employer wants to hire within their own industry. And we're not creating that. We're still creating factory line workers, the way that our education system is set up. So I feel really passionate about this, and it's going to be, I'm envisioning it's a 3-year process to switch my school over. But that's the long and short of it. I don't know if that answered your question, Chris.
Sure, why not?
But yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I was just curious. My wife's our principal in a small school, so like I'm just thinking like from her perspective. I'm not making my wife, but I'm just saying like I'm thinking from her perspective. What would that battle look like for her as the one who'd be carrying the torch of we got to do this, and then throwing her into the lion's den like.
Right. Yeah. It will be interesting for sure. It will definitely be interesting. There are very few middle schools that still pursue, I don't know how much they do standards-based, but I would imagine they're primarily doing standards-based, since all I hear from the students and the parents from those couple of schools is that they are primarily project-based learning. So my guess is that there is some aspect of the standards-based grading as part of that. My goal is to actually get out to those schools this semester just to kind of talk and see what it looks like and get some pointers and some tips to help transition it to the high school level. Yeah. So.
The project-based learning seems like it really fits in pretty well with this.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I would think so, because that's how you're able to do all of this. But we know that, preaching to the choir.
Right.
Well, and if you're able to join Wednesday night, what is it? It's 8 Central, so you're California, so it'll be early for you. I know it'll be 6. For our standards grading chat, you'll be able to connect with a lot of educators there as well, and administrators and all of that. I'm one of the co-moderators of the chat. It's a lot of fun. So
I was going to ask you what time it's at, so thank you. I'll add that to my list. Probably more lurking since that's the dinner hour, but that's okay. Still learn a lot that way.
I understand, but if you're for more connections, though.
Right, exactly.
I've never actually hopped in, but I've reviewed the tweets several times. I'm like just looking for getting more ideas. It's great. Even just looking at the hashtag and seeing what people have been talking about. If you can't get there at that time, it's great.
Yeah, and they're archived too, so you can always contact me. I can send you an archive of any of them.
Great, thank you. Yeah, awesome. This just has me more pumped up. It's been a good chat.
Aren't you just excited to start up Monday? Are you guys all starting on Monday?
Actually, our girls come on Tuesday.
Oh.
We started on Thursday.
Oh my.
But we have but we have no school on Monday because it's going to be -50. So
our first
day.
Day back is supposed to be Monday, but it's going to be a high of -5 that day. So
that's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Too.
Yeah.
So.
Ridiculous.
That's just wrong.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
That should be illegal. That should be illegal.
Yes. I agree. Yeah, of course, we're all complaining it's balmy in the 60s here, but we have no water.
That's rough.
So
That's rough over there. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't feel sorry for you at all.
no, I'm sure you don't.
It's supposedly like 60 or 70. I think it's like 60 or 70 over here, but we have like really like 145% humidity in Taiwan. Like there's just like bottles of water that just float in the air. And so it's like someone, I haven't lived in Florida, but someone told me that it's like in Florida where it's like 60 degrees and you want to put on like all of your clothes. Like I went to college in Nebraska and I'd walk out outside in like 40 or 50 degrees in shorts, and like that's not a problem. And I've never been as cold in my life as I am here when it's 70.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's
That's just wrong.
uh-huh.
No, thank you.
So I don't know.
So you're coming back?
Say
Yeah, I was just looking on the community to see if they've given us a stop time.
I thought that they had said.
Yeah, the slam starts in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Here's a link to start for this. What are they tweeting about? Yeah, I think you're right. See, I think everything started out about 10 or 15 minutes late.
Right.
They're doing these slams in a while. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Y'all need to join that. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for the conversation, folks. This has been great.
No problem, y'all.
Fantastic. Fabulous. All right.
Cool. So we're gonna end this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Janet. Thanks, everyone.
Been fun.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.